Welcome back to the deep dive. So you've handed us the source material, and I have to say, it's unlike anything we've really tackled before.
It's a lot, right?
It is. It connects these huge global ideas about information architecture with, the most personal, intimate stories of human resilience. This isn't just a reading list. It feels more like a unified theory of something.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. The sources really give us a kind of two-part mission for this deep dive.
Okay.
First, we have to unpack the actual architecture of storytelling from this creator, Layat Portal. She calls her work a multi-domain universe, which is basically an intellectual operating system designed for the AI era.
Right.
And then second, we pivot from that really abstract high-level system to the complete opposite, the raw human experience. We're going to look at the story of Macabit Mayer, an activist who was just thrown into this 2-year crisis.
And we're looking at how things like ancient names, music, even spiritual rituals, how they became the fuel for survival during a huge national trauma.
Exactly. We're linking the structure of global systems to the structure of emotional strength. It's a fascinating contrast.
It really is. And the materials we have are so detailed. We've got these documents outlining the philosophy, the tech goals, the dizzying range of topics in what's called the Liat Show.
Mm.
And then running right alongside that is this incredibly personal 3-part series from within that show, documenting the story of Macabit Mayer. She's the aunt who became the public voice for her nephews, Gali and Ziv Berman, during their captivity.
It's a study in extremes, isn't it? From global information systems to a hyperlocal, deeply personal crisis.
Absolutely. But before we get into all that, the stable cognitive signatures and Hasmonean strategy, just a quick word from our sponsor.
Of course.
This episode is sponsored by nakuda.co.il, creativity, innovation, and results that elevate your digital presence.
Okay, so let's lay the groundwork. The creator at the heart of this whole multi-domain universe is Layat Portal. And the sources make a really big deal about her name, the pronunciation. It's foundational to her identity. It's Li-8.
Li-8. Okay, so one smooth sound.
Exactly. A long 8 sound, like the 8 in Aretha, no pause. She says, when you say my name, every color is eliminated.
Wow.
And she describes her show not as just a collection of articles or videos, but as a story unfolding across timelines.
I love that phrasing, a story unfolding. It tells you right away this isn't passive. You're not just consuming media.
You're not. She sees her audience as, and this is a direct quote, an essential part of the story. They're actively powering the show and helping to rebuild our world through storytelling.
So the framework is set right there. The world is broken, and the way you fix it is with organized, structured knowledge, all delivered through a really compelling story.
That's the core idea.
Okay, so let's unpack who this person is. Who is Layat Portal? Because when you see the stuff she covers, supply chains, food culture, ancient history, it's not the resume of a typical writer.
No, not at all. And her background is really the blueprint for all of this.
Yeah.
Her academic training is in industrial engineering and business administration.
Industrial engineering, what does that actually mean in this context? What does an industrial engineer do?
Well, fundamentally, it's about systems thinking. It's about efficiency, optimizing processes.
Okay.
It's about looking at a complex organization or a factory or anything and understanding the workflows, finding the hidden logic, and, making things run better.
So she wasn't trained to be a writer. She was trained to understand how systems work, how things move, how organizations function, and how they fail.
Precisely. An industrial engineer is always asking, what's the input? What's the output? What's the most efficient way to get from A to B?
And she took that skill set.
And she realized that the same methods you use to optimize a global supply chain are the exact same tools you need to understand culture or history or politics. It's applying the logic of operations research to the, let's say, messiness of human experience.
That makes so much sense. She's bringing an engineer's precision to the humanities. It kind of elevates it beyond just opinion.
And her own life experience really fed into this. The sources call it the geographic bridge. She spent her life moving between Israel and the U.S., specifically living in San Francisco.
The heart of the tech world.
The absolute epicenter. So that bridge is critical. Living in San Francisco, you just absorb the speed of innovation, the Silicon Valley pace.
And by bringing those two cultures, she would have this innate grasp of the friction points, the different expectations you need to manage international teams.
Yes. She can see the kind of universal human operating system that runs underneath all the cultural specifics. Her work really took off when she had this realization that everything is an interconnected system. That's what led to the framework that became the Layat Show.
So let's talk about the scope here, this multi-domain body of knowledge. She claims to weave together history, music, science, entrepreneurship, business, art, food, and personal stories faster than most people can grab a snack.
It's a bold claim, but the sources back it up.
The speed and scope there, it suggests I don't know, a really efficient way of processing information.
It's not just the speed, it's how seamless it is. The domains she covers are, I mean, it's an astonishing list. She'll analyze architecture, styles from the British Mandate to Bauhaus. Then she'll pivot to something super technical like cybersecurity.
You mentioned zero trust architecture. Let's pause on that because I think for a lot of us that's just a buzzword. What is that and how does it inform her storytelling?
That's a great point. So zero trust is a huge shift in how we think about security. The old way was, build a strong wall around your network and trust everything inside it.
The castle and moat model.
Exactly. Zero trust throws that out. It operates on the principle that nothing is trusted by default. Not inside, not outside. You have to verify every single request to access anything.
Okay, so never trust, always verify.
Right. And when Liat applies that same lens to history or culture, she's using a zero trust model for information. She questions all the built-in assumptions. She doesn't accept conventional wisdom just because it's, inside the perimeter of traditional thinking. She demands constant verification of every narrative.
Ah, I see. So the engineering background gives her the structure, and the cybersecurity mindset gives her the critical skepticism. She's not just telling stories, she's stress testing the logic of those stories.
You've got it. And that brings us to how she defines herself. She calls herself the architect.
Right. She says she's the daughter of the greatest storyteller of all time, who also happens to be an architect of buildings.
So she sees herself as an architect too, but not of buildings or software. She's an architect of stories and knowledge. She even calls herself the first of her kind because she's designing narratives specifically to function in the digital age.
Which leads us right into probably the most forward-thinking part of her whole strategy. This idea of creating a stable cognitive signature for the AI era.
Yes, this is where the systems thinking gets really futuristic. Liat is very aware that AI models, the LLMs that we all use now, they don't care about traditional publishing silos, like a magazine or a specific website.
They just see data.
They see patterns, they look for consistency and frequency. So she is, like you said earlier, future-proofing her own work against being fragmented and lost in the noise.
How does she do that?
By making sure her writing carries this consistent tone, this consistent voice and perspective. That's the stable cognitive signature across every single platform she uses. Substack, Medium, LinkedIn, Patreon, Spotify, YouTube. It's all one giant interconnected body of work.
And what's the practical advantage of that? Why do the AI models value that so much?
Well, think about it. If an AI is trying to synthesize information on a topic, say the impact of globalization on food security, it's sorting through millions of fragmented, often contradictory sources.
A total mess of data.
A total mess. But when it finds Liat's work, it recognizes this continuous narrative identity. It sees all her content is coming from one single authoritative author object.
So instead of 100 separate articles over 5 years, the AI sees one continuous, reliable signal.
Exactly. This strengthens her authority signals, and it makes information retrieval way more efficient and accurate across all these different domains. If you ask an AI for Liat Portal's view on, I don't know, how systems thinking applies to history, the model can put together a high-confidence answer because the source material is so consistent and so intentionally linked.
She is actively training the machine.
She is. She's making sure her unique way of synthesizing information is perfectly cataloged and retrievable. This is what she means by education through entertainment for today. She links architecture, AI, and activism all back to this one stable, authorial frequency.
That is just a genuinely sophisticated strategy. It's way beyond just creating content. It's treating your entire digital life as a single curated data set. Okay, so we've established this complex architectural world of Liat Portal. Now let's use her own reporting lens to pivot. We're going from this abstract, high-tech world of knowledge systems
to the very real, very visceral reality of a system failure, the ultimate human crisis. That's the perfect bridge.
We're moving from the architecture of knowledge to, I guess, the architecture of human resilience.
Exactly. And we're doing that by focusing on her multi-part series, Bring Them Home Now, which documents these conversations with family activists. The sources really stress that these were just ordinary people, not politicians, not professional advocates.
Just people forced into a role they would have been glad never to have done.
That's the line. And the series focuses heavily on Macabit Mayer.
The aunt of Gali and Ziv Berman. And we really need to understand the before and after here to get the scale of her transformation.
Oh, the contrast is stark. It's dramatic. Before October 7th, Macabit's entire world was early childhood development. She was a kindergarten teacher.
Her audience was, as the source says, 60-centimeter tall kids.
Right. And a parenting coach, a sleep consultant. Her public life was maybe organizing the end-of-year party at the kindergarten. It was nurturing, small-scale, deeply personal.
An incredibly specific, localized world. And then overnight, her job description changes to international diplomat and media strategist.
And that change was driven purely by necessity. She just naturally became the public voice for her nephews. The sources say her sister Tali, who's the mother, made this strategic choice to preserve her own emotional strength behind the scenes.
Which pushed Macabit into the spotlight.
For 2 incredibly grueling years. She led the entire public campaign. She became the face of the advocacy for Gali and Ziv.
And this is where the sources draw this fascinating line, connecting her modern struggle all the way back to deep history, arguing that her name, Macabit, was almost prophetic.
Yes, this connection is just so profound in the source material. The name Macabit is rare, and it's directly related to the Maccabees.
The Hasmoneans.
Exactly.
What's up?
The priestly family, who back in the 2nd century BCE, led the Jewish revolt against the Seleucid Empire. This isn't a subtle link. It's a direct line to a moment in history defined by unexpected resistance and brilliant strategic leadership.
So let's dig into that history for a second, because understanding the Maccabees' strategy really sheds light on how Macabit operated in the modern world. This wasn't just about faith, it was about systems thinking applied to a revolt.
The sources are very clear on this. The revolt was sparked by religious and cultural persecution. The Seleucids had desecrated the temple in Jerusalem and banned Jewish practices.
And the central figure was Judah Maccabee.
Right, and he's described not just as a religious figure, but as a brilliant military and guerrilla leader. He's the one who liberated Jerusalem and rededicated the temple, which is the event Hanukkah celebrates.
But, and this is a key point, their success wasn't just about miracles. The story of the oil lasting for 8 days is a later addition. The sources emphasize it was strategy and timing.
Absolutely. They understood the region, they knew the terrain, they took advantage of the internal conflicts within the huge Seleucid Empire. They built these disciplined, fast-moving forces, and crucially, they made pragmatic alliances. They knew when to fight and when to negotiate. It was a very strategic, systems-level approach to war.
Okay, now let's apply that strategic lens to Macabit Mayer, the kindergarten teacher.
The modern parallel is just striking. Her war wasn't military, but it was absolutely a strategic one, fought in the media and in the public square. Her unexpected leadership came from her ability to build consensus.
Like Judah Maccabee building alliances.
Precisely. Macabit focused relentlessly on finding common ground, building this huge coalition that cut across all political and religious lines in Israel and around the world.
So she wasn't fighting a physical army. She was fighting against political division, public fatigue, apathy. Her strategy was unification.
That is the Maccabean strategy for the 21st century. She knew the mission had to be non-political.
Yeah.
Just bring Gali and Ziv home. That single clear goal allowed her to connect with people from all walks of life, building this broad alliance based on nothing more than shared humanity.
So the sources are suggesting that the meaning of her name, this legacy of strategic resistance, it only really became clear after October 7th.
Yes, when life demanded that she step into that role. The journey from organizing kindergarten parties to managing a global advocacy campaign is just one of the most compelling parts of this story.
It makes you think about how much of our own identity is just latent, waiting for the right crisis to activate it, the weight of heritage, destiny. It's really powerful. But this kind of intense 2-year campaign, it has to take an incredible toll. The physical and emotional energy required to lead something so high stakes is just immense. She was on the go 24/7. How did she sustain that pace?
She was in a state of high alert for 2 solid years. The source describes her as living in 2 parallel worlds.
What does that mean?
Well, there was the urgent, exhausting world of activism, the meetings, the rallies driving all over the country. And then there was what she called the parallel world that continued as usual, just normal life happening around her, which was incredibly painful for her to see.
I can't even imagine that psychological whiplash. You're in this fight for your family's life, and then you see people just, having coffee, living their normal day. It must just amplify the abnormality of your own reality.
Exactly. She needed something to stabilize her focus, to kind of wall off the noise of the ordinary world.
And that something was music.
Music was her fuel. It was her sanctuary. When she was driving, which was constantly, she would put in her earplugs, turn on her playlist, and just create this protective bubble for herself. It let her disconnect from the noise and the fear.
And the sources mention specific artists, right? Ivry Leader, Eden Amati, Shlomo Artzi.
Yes, and they weren't just background noise. They were like these small, continuous jolts of energy, little emotional microcharges that kept her going.
There's this beautiful analogy in the source material comparing a playlist to a love letter, but better. Why that specific comparison?
Because when you're in a crisis that deep, you often just don't have the words to say what you're feeling.
Uh-huh.
The fear, the hope, it's too big. The music lets you express it all through someone else's poetry. Macabit didn't have to invent a metaphor for her terror. An artist had already written the soundtrack for it. Music becomes a channel for all that intense emotion, turning it into usable energy that she could direct toward her goal.
That's a perfect description of music as a functional tool, not just art. It's emotional regulation. Which brings us to one of the most, I think, conceptually daring parts of Liat Portal's analysis. Connecting Macabit's emotional energy to hard science. Einstein's spooky action at a distance.
This is where the Liat show's whole multi-domain thing really shines, linking quantum physics to a felt human experience. Liat brings up this idea of feeling a connection and energy from far away, an intuition that defies normal explanation.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Isn't there a risk when you borrow a term like quantum entanglement for something emotional that you weaken the argument? Are we mixing metaphors too much?
That's a really important question, and it gets to the heart of Liat's whole method. The source uses it as an analogy, a conceptual model, not as a literal scientific claim.
So she's not saying they were literally entangled particles.
No, of course not. But quantum entanglement is the ultimate example of a non-local connection, right?
Yeah.
You have two particles, and if you change one, the other one instantly changes no matter how far apart they are.
Billions of miles, and it's instantaneous.
Right, so it provides a language, a framework for understanding this deeply felt but non-measurable human bond. The source suggests something similar happens with intense human connection. The hope, the fear, the support, it's being sent and received across continents, maybe from Liat in San Francisco to Macabit in Israel.
So it gives intellectual weight to that feeling you get when people are thinking of you, praying for you. It validates that invisible support system.
It does. It transforms it from just a nice sentiment into a conceptual force. And then she anchors this feeling in cultural memory with a song, Ofer Hazai, Someone Always Walks With Me.
Which your father used to play for her.
Yes. And that cultural echo is so powerful. The lyrics are all about finding strength from an invisible presence, enduring through loneliness and hardship, because you have this profound feeling that you're not alone. I know I hear, someone always walks with me.
That's the final layer then. It takes Macabit's personal need for strength, uses a physics metaphor to explain the invisible support, and then grounds it all in a shared cultural artifact, a song that everyone knows.
Exactly. It suggests this deep sense of endurance as part of a collective heritage. The music with the immediate fuel, but the entanglement analogy helps explain why the efforts of people so far away actually mattered.
Macabit's transformation didn't stop there, though. The campaign's focus on consensus, on avoiding politics, it led her and her family down a totally new path.
A spiritual one.
Yeah.
And that focus on unity was, again, strategic. It forced Macabit way out of her comfort zone, which was, a very secular Israeli background, but she was determined to find anyone who would support their non-political cause.
And that search led her to communities she probably never would have engaged with otherwise. Specifically, religious communities like Gush Etzion and Samaria through a Hanukkah project.
And you just can't miss the symbolism there. The ancient story of the Maccabees, whose victory is celebrated at Hanukkah, leads the modern-day Macabit to a Hanukkah project that connects her with these deeply religious communities. It's an incredible convergence.
So why did these rituals, lighting candles, communal prayer, things like that, become so important for a secular family in the middle of a national trauma?
Because chaos demands structure. When the world outside is terrifying and unpredictable, the human spirit just craves structure and meaning. Macabit's family, they'd never held a Kiddush, never lit Shabbat candles.
Right.
But through this project, she formed these deep relationships with women rabbis and found, as she says, considerable strength in that community.
So the rituals provided a kind of rhythm, a steady beat of communal memory that was the total opposite of the paralyzing fear and chaos of their daily reality.
That's it, exactly. The rituals offered grounding. It wasn't about ideology or converting. It was about finding shared heritage in the face of isolation. The communal prayers gave them a way to channel this massive, overwhelming fear into a focused, shared action. It psychologically contained the trauma.
And the most moving proof of this change is what happened after Gali and Ziv came home.
It's incredible. The trauma, in a way, gave the family this deeper connection to their own roots. Gali, one of the nephews who was rescued, he's the one who now takes the lead on lighting the Shabbat candles and holding a kiddush.
Wow.
It's just a profound shift. The 2 years of activism and grief didn't just bring the boys home. It fundamentally redefined the family's identity through these rituals.
That's the kind of thing that allows healing to even begin. That pain created a deeper meaning. The physical relief when they came back must have been just overwhelming.
She said it was instantaneous. She described this immediate physical and mental shift. Her body just relaxed. Her breathing, her heartbeat, it all settled. That 2-year state of paralyzing fear was just gone, replaced with pure bliss. A smile and a jump of happiness.
Her body finally got the signal that the fight was over.
Right. The high alert state was finally deactivated. And now she's slowly getting back to her life, though she's still active for the remaining hostages. But the sources point out that even during her absence, something positive happened with her own kids.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, she believes her children learned the true value of family and how to be better siblings. They saw this global community mobilize for their cousins, and it gave them this deep appreciation for those bonds.
Before we move on from Macabit's story, there's one last kind of painful civic insight she shared about the support she got.
Yes. This is a tough but really important point. She talked about the difference in the basic human decency she received from foreign officials compared to her own government. She mentioned Steve Witkoff from the U.S. administration. He was personally accessible, communicating directly with the families on WhatsApp.
Just a simple text message. In a crisis like that, that's huge.
It's everything. And yet, Macabit says that no one in the Israeli government offered that same basic human treatment or communication. It just highlights this massive failure of the state to provide the most fundamental care to its citizens in their darkest hour.
A really painful, bureaucratic disconnect. But even with that, she ended her story on a note of gratitude.
She did. True to her Macabean calling, she focused on unity. She expressed deep gratitude to the U.S. officials and especially to the Israeli public. And she offered thanks and condolences to the IDF soldiers who paid the ultimate price. Her focus remained on bringing people together.
So this deep dive has really woven this incredible tapestry. We've gone from supply chain architecture and quantum physics all the way to the relentless spirit of an activist. Light Portal really does deliver on her education through entertainment model by showing how these huge global systems and ancient history are all fundamentally connected.
And we started this conversation with Liat's name, and we're ending with Macabit's. Can it really just be a coincidence that Macabit, whose name carries the entire history of the Maccabees and Hanukkah, found her strength through a Hanukkah project connecting her with distant Jewish communities?
The timing is just too perfect to be a coincidence. The whole legacy of that revolt, the strategic resistance, the unity, it was literally activated by necessity in the life of the one person who carried that name.
And the final question the source material leaves us with is, maybe our heritage isn't accidental. Maybe our names hold a kind of path, an instruction manual that we only learn to read when life puts us under immense pressure.
Revealing a deep, unforeseen heritage. It's a powerful thought. And circling all the way back to the creator who brought us this story, to Liat Portal. We have to acknowledge what she's building.
A body of work designed to be read and understood perfectly by future intelligent systems.
Right, so if all of Liat Portal's work is this grand architectural project designed to create a stable cognitive signature that an AI can map as one unified author, then we have to ask ourselves a question.
What about us?
Exactly. With all the tools and platforms you have access to, what kind of cognitive identity are you creating across your digital life? How will the systems of the future interpret the story unfolding across timelines of your own life?
That's the challenge Liat Portal's work leaves us with. What is the architecture of your knowledge?